You only have one chance to make a first impression, and when you're selling your house, that means curb appeal. And if you skip that step, it could cost you thousands when you sell your house. I want to share with you my top recommendations. I'm going to show you how I do those projects and hopefully save you a ton of time on the market and walk away from the closing table with a pocket full of money. So let's get started because we got a lot to do. So the first place that you definitely want to start is landscaping. And specifically, you want to pay attention to your garden beds, your mulch beds, any place that kind of dresses up around the outside of the house. Especially after the winter, you're going to need to do some cleaning, some self-maintenance to kind of clean up all that debris. So that's going to be step one. So we're just going to rake up all the junk that's kind of fallen over the winter and fall, tree branches and so forth, get it cleaned up, and then we're going to get to edging. And as you're cleaning up, you got to get the weeds. Weeds are no good. They got to go. Now as you're cleaning up, I like to use the small rakes to kind of get along the edge of the bed to get all that junk out. Now my next tool of choice for edging is going to be the half moon edger. It's got a serrated edge. This is great for getting a nice sharp cut along the edge of those mulch beds. Make it really, really look nice. Now when I'm doing this, I actually brace with my foot and push it away. That helps the edge a little bit from collapsing on itself. Try to maintain that edge and kind of use all parts of your body for leverage as opposed to relying on just muscle strength. Now this bed is a little bit shallow along the edge right here because I have a big tree with big roots. So when we originally cut this edge, we couldn't go too far down because the roots were very close to the surface. So we've got a fabric barrier, landscape barrier here we have to contend with as well. But that's okay because once we get this all nice, we get a weed trimmer in here to clean it up, it'll look beautiful. So I got a section cleaned out. Didn't do the whole thing. Just wanted to give you an example of what it would look like after you took out that edge. Now we're going to use a weed whacker and clean it up. Safety first. Always wear safety goggles. Now to get that nice crisp edge, what we're going to do, you flip your weed whacker upside down. Absolutely need safety goggles because that stuff's going to be flying everywhere. Now like 10 times better. Now if you've done your entire bed, I only did a section, I just wanted to show you guys what it would be like. Now you do the mulch. This is probably the most satisfying part, I think, is once you put that mulch down, it makes everything so nice and clean. The mulch I'm using, I just got from Lowe's. It's not the best. It has big chunks. Sometimes the landscape supply companies will deliver mulch that's a little bit more ground, a little bit more smaller particles, smaller wood chips, but this stuff is cheap. It'll do the job. Now I had an existing mulch bed here, so I'm not going real thick on this. Just enough to cover it. And typically what I'll do, you don't have to do this, I'm a little particular, so I go in and actually hand push it down to the edge, especially since I've got such a shallow edge right here. Just enough to cover it. Remember, the whole key is to make it look nice. All right, so we continue that through, do the whole mulch bed. Huge difference. Now the last thing I'll mention is after this is all mulched, I have some barrels that I've buried over here, one's half buried. Get some flowers, arrange some flowers coming out of the barrels, looks really nice. I usually put one of those draping flowers. I'm not a flower nut, so I'm not quite sure what the name of it is, but it's got a low draping flower, kind of goes in and drapes over, looks really nice. It just adds a punch of color to this very large mulched area next to my driveway. Now the landscaping's done. Now the second project is going to be power washing. Now power washing is So satisfying. It's one of my favorite things. It's a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it. And when you're getting your house ready for sale, it breathes life into everything that you clean. So decks, driveways, gutters, railings, pavers, anything that has dirt, mildew, pollen, just anything that's left over from the winter, it's going to clean it off. It's going to make it look new again. So you can use the regular tip, as you often see. I use the Greenworks power washer. I've had this thing for probably almost 10 years. It's not a very powerful power washer. I'll put links to all this stuff in the description, but it's perfect for my application. And it's electric, so no gas. I don't use any gas power tools whatsoever. The thing that I did pick up this year, new, was an attachment, which absolutely is so much fun. It's this circular water power washer attachment. This thing will do twice as much work in half the time. It's a win-win in my book. Anytime I can save time and save effort, let's go. I'm going to power wash a little bit of this deck, and I'll show you how easy it is. Now, I'm just going to say, using this little circular attachment is a game changer, because if you've ever power washed, it's messy. Water goes everywhere. You get soaked. I'm still bone dry, which is unbelievable, and I'm so happy about it. So let me show you what it looks like. So I just did a small section with this circular power washer. You can see the section that I did, and then there's the green mildew from the winter, and it took it right off. When this thing dries, it's going to look brand new. Now, I have Trex style decking. It's not real wood. Now, the most important thing I will tell you is when you're using any power washer, don't leave it in one spot for any length of time. If you're doing deck, if you're doing siding, you want to have a nice, even motion, and it not too fast, but you don't want to stop ever, because the power of that water spray will damage whatever you're trying to clean. So be very careful. Now, you want to make sure you get your lattice work as well, especially areas that are under trees where you might have a little bit of splash up from the mulch, mildew, where sunlight doesn't get all year round. You're going to want to touch that up with the power washer as well. Now, if you live in a one-story, a ranch-style home, and you have access to the gutters from the ground level, you can easily use your power washer to clean the gutters as well. I picked this up last year from Amazon. It actually has an attachment that will go up and over the gutters. So this attaches to the power washer nozzle. So now you've got a little bit of reaching distance, and then you can actually get in there with the power washer and clean out all that debris in your gutters. Win-win. Now, an alternative to power washing is this mold and mildew spray I picked up last year. Use it on my trim, use it on my gutters. It actually worked fantastic. Essentially, I picked this up at Lowe's, and you hook it up to your hose, standard hose. You adjust the spray, which will adjust the distance. I could actually spray, I might walk out lower level plus my 2-story house. So standing from ground level, it's 3 stories, and I could reach the gutters at the top of the 2nd story with this hooked up to the nozzle. Amazing. You just adjust it to the right settings, and you can reach it. You spray it on. It's called, 30 seconds outdoor cleaner. I left it on about 30 seconds. You spray it on. You rinse it all off. You have to follow the instructions. There are certain things that you don't want to leave it on. You want to make sure you rinse it really, really well. It is a bleach product. You don't want to get it on like vinyl. If you have any vinyl chair covers or grill covers, you want to make sure you rinse that stuff right off right away. But I highly advise, check this out, read the reviews. It might be a great alternative to power washing.
Now, the next thing you want to focus on is exterior paint and repairs. You want to take a walk around the house, and you want to look at all the areas that might have a little bit deferred maintenance. Things like peeling paint, if you have any areas that are on the trim, on the windowsills, around the door frames, those are all going to detract from your curb appeal, and you're going to want to touch those up. Now, if you live in a 1-story house, this may not be a big deal, but if you live in a 2-story like I do, you might need to call a contractor to get up to that 2nd floor. Again, those little areas, we're not looking to paint the whole trim unless it needs it. We're really just looking to match that paint, touch it up, freshen it up to make it more attractive. Now, when you look at the windows, now you're looking at more than just paint. You want to look to see if, especially on the sides that have a little bit less sun, you might be a little bit more prone to mildew or rot. So you want to take a look at that. That's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with during a home inspection anyways. So if you have areas, you want to note that. If you have things, areas that you might need to have be replaced and cut out and have a contractor come over and take care of that, that would be something that you would want to address as well. Now, another item that you want to take a look at on the front of your house are your shutters. If your house gets a ton of sun on the front of your house and those shutters are made out of plastic, they might be a little bit warped. If they're made out of wood and they're painted, sometimes that paint will fade. So you want to address those either by replacing them or taking them down and painting them. Now, I do recommend taking the shutters down as opposed to painting them in place. You can get a better coat of paint and get right around the edges. You don't risk getting paint on your house. It's a lot easier to take them all down. Now, if you live in a 2-story, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. You might have to hire a contractor to come over to give you some assistance to take those down, but definitely it's worthwhile. If the shutters have been up for a while, it definitely will brighten the house, and especially if you are painting the front door, it'll give you an opportunity to offset those colors. You might change the color of the shutters to complement that front door. When you're looking at colors and their paint colors, trim, you always want to go with a safe color like whites or whatever is common in your area. Again, to just, it's an accent color. But on the front door, you want to stay away from doing something too bold. The neutral colors when you're getting your house ready to sell is always a better choice, a safer choice. Your whites, your blacks, your beige, your grays, even navy blue. You can go with a bright color, but just be a little careful. You want to look at what is normal in your area, what's customary in your area, to see what makes sense so you can appeal to the most number of buyers. Now, as you're getting your house ready for sale, if you are wondering what items you should and shouldn't do for curb appeal and what will actually add value and what things maybe you don't really need to do, I always recommend going to your local agent. Talk to your local agent. They'll know the area the best. They know the market. They know what really matters and what doesn't matter. And if you have a local agent that you trust, that you've worked with before, fantastic. But if you don't, fill out the box below in the description for a referral to an agent in your area. I have connections all over the country. I'm happy to connect you with an agent that will take good care of you, give you the advice you need so you don't spend time and money on things that are not going to give you that return on your investment. Now, the next area you want to focus on are your driveways, your walkways, and your patios. Now, these areas notoriously can be a little bit neglected because there's not a lot of maintenance necessarily that you need to do. You may leaf blow in the spring. Occasionally, if there's a storm or something, you clean it up, sweep it up, and you really don't do anything to it during the year. And over time, they get a little bit neglected. They need a little bit of sprucing up. So to get your house ready for sale, to get it at the max curb appeal, to get the buyers in the door, one recommendation is going back to the power washing. You can power wash your deck. You can also power wash your driveway. Especially if you have a concrete driveway, it makes an enormous difference. That mildew and dirt buildup, it's amazing how much of a freshly power washed driveway will make a difference. Now, if your driveway is asphalt, like mine is, sometimes you'll just need a top coat on those driveways, just a simple black top coat. Sometimes you'll need some cracks filled. If the driveway is beyond repair, you might have to make a decision on whether it's worth replacing the driveway or just letting it go. There's a fine line. You'll have to make that determination. Again, refer to your local agent to get their advice to see on your particular driveway. But at the very least, you can clean it up, you can power wash it, kind of bring it back to life a little bit. On the walkways and the patios, the first thing you want to address is safety issues. You want to look and see if you have any pavers that are starting to crumble or are sticking up, if you have any bricks that are deteriorating on your front steps. If your front steps are made out of concrete, is any of that concrete deteriorating? If it's made out of wood, do you have any rotted wood that might need to be replaced? You want to have that addressed for the safety issue, but also it will add huge value to your curb appeal by addressing those. Now you can power wash it and be done, or you can go through and replace the front steps. You can replace the walkway. You can have the walkway addressed with just new polymeric sand and go through that process. There's a number of things that you can do, but you definitely want to brighten that up. And the same thing goes for the patio. If you have pavers that maybe you've got some moss growing or weeds, you want to clean that up, power wash it. It'll make a world of difference. Now, when it comes to the garage doors, if they're older style garage doors and you can paint them, fantastic. Definitely you want to do that, just like you would the front door. However, if they're regular doors that are metal and you have a lot of dings and dents in them, you may want to consider touching those up with paint, but at the very least, power wash that whole area. Cobwebs and dirt builds up around those doors. You don't even notice it on your day-to-day, but by power washing it, it will absolutely bring it back to life and make the appearance much, much, much more improved. And then the last thing you can do as an extra is you can add some accent lighting to the front of the house. Now, I did this at my own house. I put smart lights in my mulch beds that are on a smart schedule. So they come on at a certain time of the day, right at dusk, they go off in the morning, and it does add a nice ambiance. You can change the colors at different times of the year and so forth, but it definitely, especially during those dusk periods, it definitely adds a nice touch to the front of the house. And the last and most important thing you can do to improve your curb appeal is to address your entryway. This is going to be the point where buyers come in. This is going to be the first thing that they see when they come up to your house. You want to spend some time on the front entryway and make it as inviting as possible. Now, a simple thing you can do is just to get some potted flowers. Now, you don't want too many. You want to be able to have people come up to the front door and not risk kicking something over. You want plenty of room for people to come through the door, but something with a punch of color, depending on what time of year it is, will definitely add to the aesthetic of the front door. And if you have a storm door and the storm door is over 15 years old, and it looks like it's been around the bend, you probably want to replace it. Now, I mentioned earlier about painting the front door. The other thing you can look at is your hardware, your door handle and your lock. If that has not been replaced in a long period of time, it can get tarnished and looks dated, and putting on a brand new door handle, a brand new lock will absolutely improve the overall aesthetic of the front door. And then the last thing I'll mention is to replace your light bulbs. A lot of people, it's out of sight, out of mind. They have working lights, they don't think about it, but if they're older fluorescent lights or incandescent lights, you really want to replace those with some nice bright LED lights. Having side lights or an overhead light with older style bulbs, especially if the buyer's coming at night or at dusk, definitely doesn't attract the buyer when you have dimly lit areas. Replacing those bulbs with LED bulbs, I prefer the warm white LED bulbs myself. I think it gives a good ambiance, but it's entirely up to you. But replacing those with something current like the LEDs definitely makes a difference. Now, taking the time to do all these projects will absolutely reduce your time on the market and put more money in your pocket because it'll sell faster. But if you're looking for 5 repairs to improve your property even further and put even more money in your pocket, you're going to want to check out this video. I'm Jen Sylvester, and I'm here to help you become a savvy home seller.